Welcome to Seekers of the Malediction. Once again, we are a podcast where we discuss tips, tricks, and strategies in our favorite miniatures card game. We are a competitive podcast, and our discussion is often focused through that lens. I'm Zach. I'm here with Pat. And Pat, what is our topic for today?
Yeah, so we're continuing right where we picked off with another card review, this time for the Faction Legion of the Fallen. So we're going to go through each card, talk about what it is and some of the use cases of it, and then we'll give a letter grade, A through F. Again, kind of both of our grading systems is A is it's a super good card, it's a bomb, goes in almost every deck, will win you the game or cause you to come back. B is like what you want to fill your deck with. It's solid units, solid spells. They're almost always in a deck. And then C's are just kind of like fringe cases. Maybe they have a place in certain builds, but they're a little lesser on the power scale. And then D's are just, not quite meeting it yet, but maybe there's potential for them in the future with additional cards or additional Seekers or Legacies. F is currently just unplayable right now. You don't want this. It just isn't going to make the cut when you're trying to fit 30 cards in your deck. So with that, let's get into our first one. So we have Anush-Vah Disciple. It is a 3 Echo unit, human, 1 attack, 3/1 damage profile, 6 range, 6 speed, 11 defense, 8 health. Curse 3, so for 1 action, each enemy within 6 inches loses their owner loses 1 Echo, up to 3 Echo per activation, and this action does provoke retaliation. Essence Binder 2, whenever an enemy is defeated during this unit's activation, you gain 2 Echo. Zach, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so this card is interesting. I feel like it's good on paper. It's hasn't been good in practice. I think Curse rarely gets the value that you want it to, particularly because I think a lot of builds presently are not necessarily trying to snowball their Echo. They're not saving, they're not banking. I mean, maybe some do, but the value that Curse is getting is really perhaps ending the use of spells during that turn. It's, I think, a hit or miss ability and generally a miss. I think Essence Binder is difficult to pull off consistently. And I think a running theme that we're going to see in Legion of the Fallen, and I love this faction. I think this faction is fantastic generally. But I'll say a lot of the non-fallen units suffer for being non-fallen. The Seekers in this faction presently really benefit from the fallen keyword, and I think units that don't have that keyword are immediately sort of on the back foot out the gate. So I'll save my grade, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Curse is just, Curse is standard right now across a couple models have it or units have it. 6 inches is just too limiting, in my opinion. Like, this is the counterpart to Prey, which is you Prey and models with friendly models or ally models within 6 inches, you gain 1 Echo for every model. And that's also 6 inches as well. And that you have control over your model, so that's going to hit a lot more things than Curse does with that same range. I feel like they should have buffed Curse to 8 inches or 10-inch range, and then maybe it's a little bit more appealing. But you're gonna. I feel like most times you're gonna have to advance, and then you're gonna do one action to Curse, and then you're dropping Echo. And the situations you want to use it is like to burn a counter or something that you think in their hand that is going to infect the current turn, right? You're not burning Echo that they're banking because you just want to deprive them of resources. It's usually like, hey, I need to not have my spell be countered, or I don't want them to do some kind of major action that affects the current state, right? And I just think it's too hard to play around. You're also sacrificing an attack or just an action to do it. It
Or
doesn't.
even your model. I mean,
Right.
this is an 11 defense, 8 hit point model. I mean, it might be your entire model gone at that point.
Yeah, I agree. Cool thing about Essence Binder, that's on a couple of other units as well as Seekers. It's if an enemy is defeated during this unit's activation, so it doesn't need to actually kill it with one of its attacks. You could do spells that do damage, or you can make another model activate during it to do damage. Anything that defeats an enemy during this unit's activation gains that 2 echoes. So that's really cool. There's no limitation on it as well. So I've wanted to make a deck work with these guys, right? Because you're just like, this is clearly the way that they want Fallen to generate more echo. It's just, it's I. It just doesn't work for some reason. I don't know. You hit on the Fallen unit type as well. That is definitely a delimiter, but I think this thing just needs a couple of other more stats, right? Whether it's a little bit more defense or larger curse range or something like that to kind of get it going. But I currently right now have it at a D. I don't know what you have it at.
I have it at a D plus, and I think that you kind of touched on sort of the last limiting issue with this card, and that is that it lives in a faction with fantastic 3-drops, frankly. And that's rough. That's rough. So I have it at a D plus. I think it's just going to get pushed out by a lot of the other 3-drops in Legion.
Yep. Cool card though. I like the art too. So moving on to the next one.
The models are great. Yeah.
Back for more. 2 costs. It's a spell, Swift Speed. As an enemy is defeated, play a fallen unit from your discard pile and deploy it in the defeated enemy's place. The deployed unit equips any relics the defeated unit had. Why don't you start us off with this one too, Zach?
So this is a difficult card to assess and grade for 2 reasons. The first being, I think generally this card often is a dead card. I think the setup required to make this card work can be difficult to pull off on the board. I think that leads it to be kind of useless in some turns, and that's really rough. The other point, though, is the upside of it in that this card can legitimately just win you games. Mm-hmm. If you are killing a relic holder and then back for mooring onto the board, grabbing the relic, it's an incredible swing in mastery, all in a 2-cost Swift spell. Yeah, these are sort of contradictory things. I think pushing and pulling at this card's rating. So I'll let you give your thoughts on it, but this one's a tough one to assess.
Yeah, this one I'm actually changing my grade on the fly just to our recent games. And so I'll just talk about the effect that I care about, right? So the relic, claiming the relic is great, but anytime a card can bring a model on the board mid-activation, right? And so you're not putting it in a deployment phase is very strong because your opponent is not planning on another unit and you getting another activation, right? When you're playing the game, you're trying to take away activations by, killing models that haven't gone yet or haven't activated. That's something to always kind of keep in mind is just how many activations does my opponent have? How many do I have? I'm always trying to gain more, right? Because then you're just affecting the board more. So any spell that adds a unit, right? This unit not only does it come into play, but it comes into play ready, so it can act right away. It's a very strong effect, but I think you hit on it. It's just way too niche. Not only for you have to defeat an enemy, which they can just play super safe and this will sit in your hand forever, but you also have to play a fallen unit, which I mean the faction wants to do that, but I do feel like it feels strange saying it, but I wish there were more fallen unit types in the base set. I'm excited for future releases where there is more fallen and more of a selection. But right now, I just think it is too niche. So I did have this at a D plus, but we've been playing so many Morta games, and just seeing Morta being able to bring back a resurrection and put a unit on the table mid activation is strong. So this is kind of getting bumped up a little bit for me. I had it at a D plus, but I'm actually going to get a C minus. I think it's a little bit better than maybe my first interpretation without putting in all the number of games we have recently.
Yeah, I have it at a B minus. I really, the surprise gotcha play behind it can be really strong. The ability to just put 2 AP that can be used that same turn onto the board in the middle of the turn, as you said, is always great. I have it at a B minus. It might end up being a little bit lower, truthfully. It might be more of a C plus card. But I think it has some solid play. And certain builds. I think one thing maybe to just note as a quick aside with some of these spells for newer players, unless a card that has you play a unit says that you are doing so without paying echo, you are still paying the echo cost of that unit that you are playing. So here it is a 2-cost spell, but it will additionally require you to pay the echo cost of the unit that you're resurrecting.
Yeah, that's a good I completely forgot about that, but that also, you know, do you want to float 9 echo to bring back a Prowler, or 8 echo to, you know, bring back a Fleshripper? You know, it just you're holding up a lot to hopefully hit this, and if you don't hit it, you're falling behind every turn because you're holding up echo, hoping to get a spell off that you just never do, right? Rather than like playing something else in your hand.
Yeah,
So I do think it's
a
just a
lot of
little.
opportunity costs wrapped up in there.
Yep. All right, moving on to the next one. Brutal Outburst. It's a 2-cost echo spell. It is swift speed. Deal 2 damage to a unit during this activation. It gets +3 attack. I'll go with this one. So you can, you know, the way swift speeds we're learning is that it can pretty much be cast anytime. The game is very broken up into different steps. So you can actually roll the die, see the result, and then hit your own model with this to do 3 damage, or do 2 damage, but then make, you know, your model hit. Otherwise, it's a good damage. You know, 2 damage is not nothing, I guess, to fire off. The reason why you would want to do that at an enemy is Vorendell has a legacy that procs whenever damage is dealt via a spell. I believe it is, right.
Yeah, yeah,
Even whether it's your model or an enemy model, it gets another. It can make a move or an attack. So this really is designed for around him. I don't know how often I'm bringing it outside of Vorendell. A conditional deal 2 damage to myself to gain +3 hit just doesn't seem worth it. So, what are your thoughts?
yeah, yeah. Like you said, I think the ability to respond to die rolls is a notch in favor for this card for sure. I think that that's interesting that you can sort of respond to just about anything with the Swift. It does kind of provide an interesting, you know, damage spell against an enemy if you really need it for a terrible, you know, damage to echo cost efficiency. But it works, right? If you need to finish something off the board, it can work. I think you're right. I think this card is okay. I think it's limited in that it likely only sees play with Vorendal, but it probably sees play with Vorendal, and I think that that kind of matches the rating that I'm going to give it. So the rating I gave it was a C plus. I think in Vorendal it can be pretty decent. Its swift speed definitely helps its rating, I think. But outside of Vorendal, is it seeing play? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, well, Vorendell he wants damaging spells because of his legacy, and he's just limited by the number that are currently out. I think that
Yeah,
if more damaging spells come out, then I think that this is going to get phased out. You know, I think it's in there just out of necessity right now. So I gave it a C as well, and it's really just because Vorendell needs it. So, all right, moving on to the next one. Oops. Yep, we are on Corpse Explosion. Great. All right, so Corpse Explosion, 2-cost echo, basic spell, channel speed. Choose an ally you own, deal 3 damage to all other units within 3. That ally is defeated. I can go first. I have a lot of mixed feelings on this card. So dealing 3 damage, AoE 3 inches. That's a large area, right? So it's almost like 7 inches, depending on what unit you select and the size of their base. It can cover a lot of ground. I do not like spells that sacrifice your units. I just feel like you're giving, even if it's already activated, you're taking away resources that your opponent is going to need to spend in order to deal with those models, right? Like, this is a strong effect, so I'm kind of somewhere in the middle on it. But in general, it has to be better than you know, putting up a unit on the board, I guess. Um, I I think it's okay, right? I think it is like kind of a niche case. I think that it's a build around for Ingor, right? He really wants to do like
yeah.
AoE spells, but like in general, I don't like cards that take my own allies off the board. I don't know. How do you feel about it, Zach?
Well, I think that that's a good point. I think that there is, particularly in Malediction, where we're talking about when you are defeating your own unit, you're also giving your opponent mastery, which of course advances their win condition and can certainly be a dangerous play later in the game. And that's a consideration for this spell. I think it does combo nicely in Ingor. I think it combos nicely, obviously, with the Fallen that have death throws. Um, you know, the boar and the Fleshripper are both, great targets for this card. The Boar especially. I mean, the Boar between its Death Rose 3 and its Dire 1, and we'll get to that card in a future video, but it combos very nicely with that card, giving up only 2 mastery. I think off the top with Ingor, it has some play. I think it's gonna see play in some other builds. You might see a copy or 2 in a Vorendal or Morita build, depending. That said, it is often an anti-tempo card, and that definitely impacts its usability and I think its rating from my perspective. I have it rated as a B. I think it has its uses. I think it's gonna see play in a lot of different builds with a lot of different seekers, but it has some serious limitations impacting its playability, and that is, you're losing board presence.
Yep. Yeah, there's one more. I guess I'll address it now, and we'll get into it. But the I think for this card, because it is such a powerful effect with deal 3 damage within 3, it's okay. But I think in general, I think it would be more creative to give the swift speed, so that if your unit is going to die anyways, you could interrupt it and gain some value out it, right? Maybe that would be too powerful, but I guess that's just interaction that I would like to see in the game. It's just maybe these things happen more at swift speed rather than channel. So we'll move on to that. Oh, I gave it a C plus. What did you give it? Did you mention?
Give it a B.
Okay, B. All right, Curse of Lethargy. It's a 3-cost elite spell, swift speed. Choose an enemy that is being activated. That enemy loses 1 AP. Why don't you go first, Zach?
Yeah, so I think I actually like this card a lot. But I will say that it is not an incredibly high grade for me because I think it's a bit expensive for what it does. I don't know that removing an AP from an enemy model is necessarily as powerful as giving an AP to one of your own. And it's costed similarly. It's an elite spell. You're only, taking 2 copies. I don't know that I am playing main deck multiple copies of this card in any of my Legion or Legion adjacent builds presently. And I don't know if that'll change as the competitive play scene evolves. I think that this card makes for a really cool sideboard card that comes in particularly against opponents who have heavily reliant seeker strategies, Thundersteps, Pollinor, something like that perhaps. I like it. I think it's really cool. But I don't think it's particularly amazing. But it's going to see a lot of play.
Yeah.
Swift. I maybe this is a point to note too. It's swift, but it is limited to having to respond to your opponent choosing a character to activate, right? So there is some limitation to its swift speed. Right. But yeah, I see it getting a lot of play, and I like it.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off that, you can't wait, have your opponent use one action like an advance, and then play it to say, well, now you can't shoot me or something, right? Like you have to play it as soon as they say I'm activating this model. So the opponent has full knowledge of, okay, I'm only going to get 1 AP. Now I'm going to select what the appropriate is. I don't know. So the things that I'm looking to shut down with this is charges cost 2 AP. Shifts cost 2 AP, which is a very strong strategy, especially if your model is engaged with something really strong like a Seeker. Shifting away to make them spend 1 AP to then come hit you is really strong. So that negates the shift if you are locking something up. There's a couple of 2 AP actions that will just take it off. So like Smite from Sigrith or Necromancy from Morida. I think there might be a couple more out there, but I do think that really shuts it down. And even when the way I play the game is I'm not engaging. Like sometimes you have to engage, but I'm typically trying to take models off the board in a single activation if I'm going to engage them, right? So like I will charge a model with multiple things and hopefully kill it. I don't want to leave my models engaged so that next turn, if they go first with it, like they win initiative or whatever, they can double smack into me. I'm always trying to limit how many times my opponent can just activate a model and swing twice into me. And this card also does that, right? So if I can leave a model engaged, I can just say, all right, you're only going to get 1 hit on me at least. I think it's very strong. I like it a lot, actually. I think it plays well into control. I think it's very versatile. I gave it a B plus. What did you give it?
I gave it a B, but I could definitely see a B plus. I like this card too. But again, I currently am using it as more of a sideboard option for particular opponents.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Dark Bindings. It's a 2-cost elite spell, channel speed, exhaust a basic enemy. I'll go first on this one. So I think it's
Sure.
a really good effect. It's I guess it is conditional on your opponent's deck, right? Like how many basics they're playing. But typically, if like again, when you're trying to trade or play on board, you're trying to kill your opponent's units that haven't activated yet, right? To kind of go up on activation, and this kind of does that without killing it, so it can really mess up an opponent's turn. Um, yeah, I think that the only thing that's tying it back is the basic enemy, which
Yeah,
is completely reliant on your like. This is a good sideboard card, right? Like if your opponent is
exactly.
flooding bunch of basic units, then you definitely want to put this in. Otherwise, it's just too risky to main deck it. What about your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's exactly the point I was going to make. In fact, I was going to say, Pat, you are the poster child for this being a sideboard card. So for those who don't know, Pat's playing um, a unique sort of rush aggressive red white build in a TTS tournament that's currently ongoing. And that build is very potent in terms of flooding the board with a ton of high value, efficient, basic units. And this spell is actually pretty good as a sideboard card into a build like that. I think that this card's limitations on it being a basic enemy make it tough to fit into a main deck. If we start to see a meta that develops around flooding the board with basic units, I think this card's a great sideboard card.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. I gave this a C, but that was before I built that orc deck that
Yeah,
floods a
yeah,
bunch of. So maybe this is a C plus. This is the cream of the crop when it comes to sideboard cards.
yeah. This is
Yeah.
exactly what I have it at. C plus. I think it's a great sideboard card.
All right. Moving on. We have Dead at Arms. It's a 3-cost Echo basic unit, fallen type. 2 attack, 3/1 damage profile, 6 speed, 12 defense, 10 health. Swarm 1. This unit gets +1 on its damage attack rolls when enemies engage with another ally. And then Persist 1. Whenever this unit would suffer lethal damage, you may exhaust it. If you do, it survives with 1 health. I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah. So I am a huge fanboy of the low cost fallen models. I'm a huge fanboy of Morida in particular. I really enjoy playing her. And so maybe I'll be a bit biased in my review of some of these units, but I will say I think Persist is a very strong ability. I think it um, allows for some really interesting board control, or at least pseudo board control presence, in the fact that you often can um, negate the ability of your opponent to remove particular pieces off the board before you are ready for them to be removed. Um, I think that that ability then is amplified in a build like Morida, where she can be handing out that ability to other basic units. And then I think Swarm is a great ability in and of itself. We talked about the Terric Beast last episode when we reviewed the red cards, and it was strong on that unit. I think it's strong here. I think 4/2 unit for 3 cost with Persist is a good solid unit. I am happy to play this card, and I think I am grading it in sort of a vacuum outside of sort of in Legion in general, not necessarily in say Morida. I think it gets a higher grade and something that can really abuse those printed abilities on its card. But regardless, super solid card in my opinion.
Yep. I have literally nothing to add to that. I mean, you hit on everything. Um, it's everything you want in a 3-drop, hitting 4/2, which is usually like the 4-drop, or 4 or 5-drop profile, like damage. Like usually you have to hit 5-cost echoes to start hitting 4 and 2. Persist 1 is amazing. It's essentially, you know, plus, it's not even +1 health, it's plus infinity health because it takes a whole nother action to kill it. Yeah. And then it's fallen on top of that. So I'm just gonna end it there. You
Yeah.
pretty much summarized everything. So I gave it a B.
I gave it a B too, and again, that's sort of in a vacuum. I think as soon as you put it into like Morita, where you can really manipulate the card even more and hand out its abilities to others or hand it abilities, it's a pretty solid B plus for me.
All right, we'll move on to the next one then. Here's its sibling, 3 cost Deadeye
Yeah,
Archer, 2 attack. It's a unit fallen basic, 2 attack, 3/1 damage profile, 8 range, 6 speed, 11 defense, 8 health. Deadly shot 1. This unit gets +1 on its range attacks within half of its range, so within range 4, or if it gets a bonus to its range, whatever half of it is. Persist 1, and then ranged only. This unit cannot perform melee attacks of any kind. I'll just kind of preface it that you can still make ranged attacks in melee against something that's engaged with you. It's just you're going to provoke a retaliation when you do so. So, Zach, you did such a great job on the last one. Take this one too.
yeah, sure. So, honestly, for all the same reasons, this card is also awesome, in my opinion. I think what's interesting with this particular unit is that it benefits from a lot of the same awesomeness that the Dead at Arms benefits from, but it also has a very solid range. And in Legion, where you may, not always, but may often face some sort of speed limitations, having ranged and a solid ranged unit at that is really potent. It's a 3-drop. It can often be that 4/2 damage line that is quite good for a 3-drop. It has persist. We already talked about how good persist is. The fact that it's fallen, it's basic, in Legion, when you think of its seekers, just make it even better. It's it's a great card, and I think it ranks higher for me than the Dead at Arms because that range on it is so potent, and it really synergizes incredibly well with both of the, I guess really all three, but particularly Vorindal and Morida in terms of seekers for
Yeah.
the faction.
Yeah, I will trade 2 health for 8 range anytime. And for that reason alone, I think it makes it better. Um, I will add that both these guys, but really this one, are excellent relic holders. I love putting,
Yeah,
obviously, I mean, it'll take a, what is the bow, that gives +2 damage relic.
Veil Piercer.
Veil, I mean, it'll take a Veil Piercer and do work, but I'm happy giving this thing an Aegis or something and kind of having it be a base of deployments and giving my nearby models one, +2 defense and resist, and it just kind of chills. And it is always going last because it wants to hold on to the relic, so it will, if it needs it, it can persist 1. Yeah, these are super solid. What did you give it for a grade?
I gave it a solid B plus, and I think in some builds that may even go up a little bit.
Yep, yep. I have it at a B plus as well. So. All right, we have Death Call. It's a unique spell, channel speed. It's 5 cost Echo. Deal 3 damage to each non-fallen unit on the battlefield. For each unit defeated this way, draw a card. I can go first with this one.
Yeah,
So we'll go to that damage, cost ratio that I'm always looking at, which is for every 1 Echo, I want it to do 2 damage. So in order for this to start paying off, even 3 units is kind of low. You need to hit 4, which is not, it's not difficult to do, I guess I'll say, but it's getting there, right? I think that if someone plays a seeker and then 2 or 3 other units, right, like they might be good there, and then just use spells to kind of close out the game from there. And then it also has to specify non-fallen. So if you're in a mirror match or playing someone that's playing Legion of the Fallen, this card's not gonna get you much value at all. And 3 damage is just not a lot. Like, this isn't
yeah,
like, you're going to find it really difficult to finish off models. You're going to have to do a lot of work up front. And I just feel like that second sentence of draw the card for each defeated unit, like you're happy if you get 1. Like I don't ever see this really coming in play where you're gonna like just pop like a bunch of stuff. Maybe if they're, yeah, funny enough, maybe if it's Lorendal and you're like spreading damage like across the whole board with protection and they're all at
yeah,
like 1 or 2
yeah.
health, maybe this is the card or the answer. But otherwise, yeah, I'm not. It's just 5 is really expensive too. I think that's the big kicker here is like I would rather have this just be AoE damage and then drop the draw card effect, because I think the damage is nice. It's just, you know, it's just too expensive. What about you?
I agree. I'm not a huge fan of this card for the same reasons. I think the spread out 3 damage tends to not be particularly powerful in and of itself. This is a card that 1 game in 10 or 1 game in 20, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be absolutely incredible. It's going to kill multiple things. It's going to draw you multiple cards, and you're going to think it's the best spell in the game because at that particular moment, it clearly was the best spell in the game. Unfortunately, I think the other 9 games out of 10, it's just not rising to the level. It's going to be doing spread out mediocre damage for 5 cost, and that isn't great. I think this card is hard to know where to put it right now. I don't know that I like it in a main deck right now. Maybe in Vorendal, but I don't think so. And it doesn't particularly sideboard super well presently, though, spoilers, as you noted, with the deck techs of the future from Seekers of the Malediction. There may be some builds I think that are very potent. You mentioned the Landrio build that spreads damage. That's one where maybe we see this card start to see some play in sideboards as, particularly or particular responses to some sort of heavy defensive builds that spread damage and keep stuff up but with low health.
Yeah.
So
I mean, to help contextualize it, someone played this against me with my Auric spam units, and I think it ended up hitting like 8 models, so like 24 damage, which is significant. And he played
yeah,
it really just to kill a single shaman, which was a key play. Like, and I think that's why he was holding on to it too. But like all the other damage, other than killing that shaman that was on 3 HP, like I just didn't care. Like I was like, okay, so all my guys are a little bit less health. Like I still have 7 of them. You killed one. Like that's kind of the problem with like low damage spells is like unless they're actually finishing things off, it just damage doesn't matter. It's kind of like your life total in Magic the Gathering, right? It can go up and down, and it doesn't matter until like you're actually dead, and that's kind of how I feel about life on units as
first
well.
19 don't count.
Right, exactly. So, all right, I gave it a C plus actually. What did you
I
give it?
gave it a C. I
Okay,
gave it a C.
all right. Next one. Dreadheart's Presence, 4 cost, unique spell, swift speed. Choose an enemy that is being activated. During this activation, that enemy cannot perform attacks. Why don't you take it away, Zach?
Yeah, I'm torn on this card. I feel in some contexts it's a bit
Mhm.
potentially overcosted. I kind of would like it at a 3. That said, it's totally playable. It's absolutely going to see a ton of play. I think it sees a ton of play in almost, if not all, of the current Legion or Legion adjacent Seekers. So this one's a tough one for me to evaluate. I think it's got a lot of uses in particular matchups and can really ruin your opponent's day, particularly if they bid for initiative for a particular attack or something along those lines. It's game breaking at that point. But again, it's sometimes going to be dead or at least not going to be as impactful as you want it to be. And that, I think, limits my grade on it just a touch.
Sure. I really don't have any notes on it. I just said swift speed, which is great, right? So it's not like you can play it on your opponent's turn. Obviously, you have to, but I just think it can mess up your opponent's turn. And I think it's just a straightforward, a super strong control spell card. You'll always find value out of it. Like there's always going to be
Yeah.
a
I
model
think my
engage,
thoughts,
right? So
yeah, and I think my thoughts on it too are a little bit surrounding the fact that it responds to, again, your opponent choosing a unit to activate. And so it isn't necessarily interrupting. It isn't a straightforward sort of interruption or permission type spell where you are interrupting an action as it's ongoing. You are allowing them to then sort of reconfigure that model's turn to account for the fact that it can't attack. So it's incredibly potent, but it does have some
yeah,
limitations on
you
that front.
want
So
Polynor to make a full advance forward closer to you and then go to try to shoot you to kill a model and say no you can't shoot me and then he's stuck.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
essentially what you want. Yeah, got it. Instead of just Polynor, okay, I can't attack this turn, I'm just gonna go run away or something. Yeah,
something like that.
makes
Yeah,
sense. I gave it an A. What did you give it?
I gave it a B plus.
All right, moving on. Drown in Oblivion. It's a 2 cost elite spell, swift speed. Choose an opponent. They discard a card at random from their hand. If the discarded card is a spell, they lose 2 echo. Um, I don't like this card at all. I think that it's kind of lazy. This is, I think, one of the only cards in the set that we are dealing with discard mechanics from your opponent's hand. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Um, the fact that like you're just blindly picking it, like it's completely random in terms of uh what it can hit. I would have rather have seen this card go up in cost than being able to look at an opponent's hand and choose a card. Even losing the 2 echo, like even if the discarded spell they lose 2 echo or whatever, I don't care about that. Really, I just want a card that can look at opponent's hand, pick a card and then discard it. Even if I have to pay 3 or 4, you're gaining information about the game. I think it's more engaging and interactive, or more, there's more skill involved rather than just like leaving it up to fate to discard a card. Um, yeah. What are your thoughts on this?
No, I agree with you, and I think this card, for those other sort of Magic the Gathering nerds out there, this card really feels like it maybe started in testing as a Thoughtseize or as a Duress, and because there isn't quite as much consistent card draw in Malediction, my guess is those cards would be incredibly potent in Malediction, and this is sort of the scaled back attempt maybe to recreate that effect. And what we end up getting is kind of a worse than 1-for-1 type card. It's not totally it's not free. At best, you're going even with it, assuming you hit a spell with the random discard with your opponent. And I'm not a fan of it. I think that there were probably better ways to get a discard card
Yeah.
into Malediction.
The other thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you cannot play any spells, even Swift, during the deployment phase, right? Which is also, I think, I don't know the exact phase, but like you draw cards for the beginning of your turn, then it goes into deployment, and then after deployment is activation, and it's at the beginning of activation when you can play spells, whether they're swift and then channeled on your model's activation. So like if you're in a top deck situation, and your opponent is just like playing both of their cards that they draw that turn, this card is just dead in hand, right? Like there's no value
Yeah.
anymore on it. So it's just again more niche even in that terms. Like you can't respond to, okay, you have cards in hand, I'm going to play it, and then at least make you discard one of the 2 cards you drew, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just like another limitation as
It
well.
feels like it's for baiting, very particular cards, damage prevention or counter spells or something like that. And I could see potentially we get into a meta where, control builds are so potent that this card actually becomes playable. Maybe. But I don't know. I don't know if that's true. This just doesn't feel like a enough advantage
Yeah.
in playing it to actually make it worth it.
Yep. All right. I gave it a D minus, and that was being nice. I probably should have just given it an F. What'd you give it?
I gave it an F. I mean, I think maybe D minus is actually more appropriate, just because there is a potential future, a potential meta where this can see some sort of play. It isn't 100% unplayable. It
Yeah.
isn't, but it's pretty low.
All right, we have Duskwoood Prowler, 7 cost elite unit. It is a fallen as well as an abomination. I didn't know that. It is 4 attack, 4/2 damage, 8 speed, 12 defense, 12 HP. Ambush 2, this unit gets +2 damage on attacks against refreshed enemies. Nimble, this unit can move without provoking a retaliation. Why don't you go, Zach?
Yeah, so I love that it's fallen. I think that that's great. As I said before, I think a lot of Legion units suffer from the fact that they are not fallen. He does not. I don't know that we have anything that interacts with Abomination in the game thus far, but that's an interesting keyword.
I was just, aren't
And
all the Conclave Abomination? The blue guys?
yeah, they might be. Yeah, the Spellbound, they
That's what I
might be.
thought was interesting is like that they kind of an
I'd have
abomination
to
came
look.
over
I
to be
know
more
I
the
know the
black.
Body Breaker and Primal Blood is an abomination. I know Ingor is an abomination. So
Okay.
we have a couple. But I don't know that we have anything that interacts with that keyword yet.
We don't.
Nimble's a great ability. Ambush 2 is a decent ability, right? It can really up your damage in certain situations, but again, it's requires some setup. And the killer for me on this card is it is a 7 cost card with 12/12 defenses, and that it's just so fragile for its cost. Its attack is great. Its damage on, its native damage is decent. Its damage with ambush is fantastic. Its speed is fantastic. But that 12/12 defense in a card that seems to want to really be in your opponent's face seems tough. I mean, it doesn't quite have the same tricks as we'll see later with Sestinar as an example. And so I think that for me, this is just lacking. I think it's held up by the fact that it's a fallen, that it has a high attack and decent damage and decent speed, but it's just limited by those defenses for me. It's a liability in mastery for sure.
Yep. Yeah, I will just add on the ambush thing. So to get ambush, you're going to attack enemies that are refreshed or readied. And so like, let's just say you're going to charge and then you're going to hit and then you're going to do 6 damage. 6 damage doesn't kill anything in the game. So you're left there and then they're going to activate because they are readied or refreshed, and then they're going to double swing into you and you're going to take a lot more damage than you probably dished out.
You could kill that Curse Spore,
and you
but
could
it'll blow up in its face.
yeah, and he would take 1 damage beforehand. Or no, he doesn't, because he went already. But yeah, I don't like it. It's a little bit too low on defenses in order for it to be 7 cost. Like
Yeah, I really wanted to have some sort of defensive tech to really justify that 7 cost. I don't know that its cost is totally unjustified with its sort of stack of other abilities, and generally great stats otherwise. So this is a tough one, and I think it's hurt by the fact that it's so like front loaded with other good stuff that it caused its defenses to end up making it sort of a mastery liability.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. All right. I gave it a D+.
I give it a C. I think it's still got play in some situations, particularly being fallen, but it's really middling.
Yep. All right. Entrap the Mind. It is a 6 cost unique spell, channel speed, pause the current activation, and choose a non-secret enemy to control. It can use up to 2 AP to perform actions or use its abilities as if it were its own activation. Treat it as an ally while using its actions and abilities to resume the current activation. Return it to its owner's control. So after it's done, it goes back to your opponent. Yeah, this is a very versatile spell, very strong. It can steal games, right? If opponent moves its last model to go contest the relic or something like that, you cast this, make that model run away, you pick up the relic, you win the game. Just if things are grouped together and there's a seeker engaged with another model, or you can grab that model and double swing into the seeker and try to kill them or something like that. I mean, for 6 is very expensive, but I think the cost warrants the effect warrants how high a cost it is, essentially. Yeah, amazing control spell essentially as well. So what do you have to add to that?
No, I totally agree. I think that its only real downside is its cost. I think it's very expensive at 6. I think it requires some thought and some planning and in some cases some situations to line up to really get the most from it. And for 6 cost, that's tough. But the fact that it is so versatile, it can do so many different things. It's just generally a fantastic spell. I think it's a Legion staple. I think it's probably going to see main deck in basically every deck that it can. I think it's a super wonky spell, which is really interesting. I think if it flips off the top for like Ingor, that's going to be wild. So I like it. I think it's a staple.
We'll have a card coming up that I'm going to call back to this card as an interaction of why I think they made the design team made a choice to not do something. This card is a problem for design going forward, I think. But we'll get to that. I gave it an A. What did you give it?
I gave it an A- simply because of its high cost. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's great.
I was going to add the high cost to me is not a delimiter, because like I found that if I'm winning, I don't care about this card anymore. Like to me, this is a really great comeback card, right? Or seal the game if it's like kind of in this tug of war kind of state. But if I'm winning, I'm happy to bid this card away. So I actually using the high cost to also bid while also holding on to it. It's not. I don't feel bad holding in my hand, I guess.
Yeah,
just
fair enough.
another use case for it. All right. Next card is Fleshripper, 6 cost elite unit fallen, 3 attack, 5/2 damage profile, 5 speed, 12 health, 8 or 12 defense, 18 health. Energy drain 2 whenever this unit scores a hit, deals damage, it recovers 2 health. Death throws 4 whenever this unit is defeated, units within 3 inches suffer 4 damage. And then clumsy, this unit cannot equip attachments. Why don't you go?
Yeah, clumsy is as god awful as ever, particularly on a high cost unit such as this one. That said, I actually like a lot about this guy. Fine attack, good damage, great defenses. Honestly, 18 health is a ton. Yeah, 12 defense is a little middling, but 18 health is a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Energy drain 2 and death throws are both interesting and have interesting uses. Keep him up and running, but when he does blow up, he's doing a bunch of damage to a bunch of things. He's okay. I think he's fun to like tutor in Morida. I think he's got some play elseways. I think he's actually quite good in Vorendal. But he's solid.
Yeah. 5 damage as well on a 6 cost. Like, I don't know how many other 5/6 costs have 5 damage. That's pretty
Yeah.
impressive. The other things I'll add there is this is an amazing comeback card, right? 18 health, so you just you're down, you're getting out activated, you throw this down, it ties up probably 2 things because 18 health just is a lot to deal with to kill it. So then you're buying yourself time to gain, echo in future turns while this thing is contesting and holding things up. And then when it finally does die, which I think this thing dies every single game. Like, if you're using it properly, it will do 4 damage on its way out. So I just think this is the card that you're looking for if you're down and you are looking to come back, you get one of these on the table and hopefully it'll buy you some time. So I gave it a B-. What'd you give it?
I give it a solid B.
All right. Force March, deal 2 damage to a unit during this activation. It gains +3. It's a 2 cost spell, elite spell channel. Yeah, this to me is similar to Brutal Outburst, right? This is channel speed, where Brutal Outburst is swift speed. It's in there for Vorendal right now. +3 movement is significant, right? Like, if you're charging, that's almost like a whole nother advance, right? So it's good utility. I just think it's an okay card. I don't have too much to say on it. It's very straightforward, right? But yeah, really in there just to proc Vorendal's legacy, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if this gets a ton of play outside of Vorendal, but in Vorendal, I like it a ton.
Yep.
So it's for me, it was a solid B. I think it's a good card. I just don't know how much play it's really getting outside of Vorendal.
Is it a B if it only goes in Vorendal? I'd argue. Like, I gave it a C-. So
I like it. In Vorendal, I think it's amazing. I think +3 speed is super, super good. I think it has corner use cases in other decks. I don't know how much it'll see play in other decks. Likely just getting squeezed out for things that fit their game plan a little more closely. I don't know. I like it a lot. I really value plus speed and mobility type things pretty highly. So at worst, I'd say it's a B- in my mind.
All right, fair enough. All right, Gift of Flesh, 1 cost basic spell. It's channel speed. Choose an ally you own. It is defeated, and your opponent gains half the mastery, rounded down. They would normally gain for defeating that unit instead. You gain echo equal to that amount. Yeah, this is just complete garbage. Just never put this in your deck. There's no way that gaining half of mastery for your model that's still left on the board that can still get activations or cost your opponent activations is worth just getting rid of for the half echo. I mean, they're also gaining that mastery. So this is essentially like, if you're playing Magic, this is, sacrifice a creature, lose half of the creature's cost in your life, and then gain, half that also that mana. It just feels really bad. Yeah, I have more thoughts on it. I'll let you go, kind of, Zach, to see if you have any insights.
I think and really, I think in Malediction, where you have miniatures on a board, you have a particular set of action points to use with those miniatures. It's worse than it would be in something like Magic. I can't really make heads or tails of where I want this card or why I want this card, or why I want this card to take one to 3 of my slots in my 30 card deck.
Yep.
you know, maybe I'm missing some interesting interaction that this card can do, that, it makes it more valuable than I see it presently, but I just can't see it being used ever.
Yeah, and so this is the card I was going to call back. So the way I thought that they could fix this card, right, or it'd be better, is if you gave it swift speed, right? You can, hey, something's about to happen. You're going to kill my creature. I'm going to get some value out of it before it goes, and at least gain some echo back, right? And also deny you a little bit of mastery, right? That's really cool, right? But then if you play Magic the Gathering, there's a card archetype called Rakdos, which is black and red. And its home theme is to gain control of your opponent's units or creatures, and then you're going to attack with those creatures or do something. And then at the end of the turn, those creatures should go back to your opponent, but you play sacrifice spells to get more value, right? So you sacrifice a creature to make them sacrifice another creature as well, 2-for-1ing them, or you're doing damage to their face or doing some other thing, right? I think because they have entrapped the mind and you gain control of a target's unit and it becomes your ally unit, they did not want to make Gift of Flesh Swift Speed to introduce that Rakdos mechanic yet.
So
I don't know if
I
that
will,
is wrong to do, I guess,
I,
but
well, I will say, I think, and I'll have to look this up, and so I'm doing this on the fly without looking it up, podcast listeners everywhere, but I think ally you own is actually defined as from your deck or your models. So I think even when you entrap the mind something, it is an ally, but it is not an ally you own. And I'm not for sure on that, but I think that that
hmm,
might be the case.
okay.
So there is a limiter already if that is the case in Gift of Flesh, which I guess even makes it worse because maybe it could have been Swift. I don't know.
Yeah. Either way, yeah, this card's not good. It's definitely an F. Please, nobody put it in your deck or even sideboard. They're just
It's an F for me right now. I will say though, I thought it was interesting and fun last episode when we did Primal Blood that we heard some, we rated Consume Carcass really low, and I still think that that card's very low, but it has a weird niche interaction with sideboarding in against Morida, and I am curious if listeners out there have any interesting interactions with Gift of Flesh that could maybe change our minds on it. But at the moment, yeah, it's an F for me.
all right. We got Mend the Dead, 2 cost basic spell, channel speed. A fallen ally recovers 5 health. Um, this is same as Healing Light, but is restricted to fallen ally. The ratio is right on. So it's 2 cost, giving you 5 health, which is typically what we see. Like every one echo gives 1.5. Sorry, 2.5 health rather.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't like I get why they did it. They had to like differentiate between this and Healing Light and Shattered Throne, but it just makes it worse, right? So I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Not too
It's a
high on
fine.
it.
You're right. I mean, it's fine, right? It's a totally fine spell. It's appropriately costed. It does fine things.
Yeah. Maybe
But
if we get to like a super tanky Vorndell, or in the future there's just like you can super tank, right?
that's
But
yeah, that's presently the only use I can see for it is Vorendal's playing it on himself, probably.
mhm.
And I just don't know that most decks want to play this or have space for it. So it's fine, but I have it pretty low. I rated it a D plus because I just don't see it slotting in anywhere over some of the other choices that need to be made.
Yep. I gave it a D. All right. Moving on. Price of Devotion, 2 cost elite spell, swift speed. As an ally would suffer lethal damage, choose another ally within 6 inches to be defeated. Prevent that damage that would be dealt to the original target, and it recovers 5 health. We'll just address the elephant in the room. Everyone reads this cards and thinks that you can persist the sacrifice, so you can the ally within 6 inches is going to be one of the dead at arms, and they have persist, and so they think that I can just persist this unit and then not sacrifice anything, prevent the damage, gain 5 health. Defeated is defeated. You are going to lose that model even if it has persist. That being said, I think that this is situationally good. Frequently will be dead in hand. But yeah, it can be when you actually get it off. I think it can be pretty punishing for your opponent. Feels better when
Yep.
you're winning the game too. I feel like when you're holding the a relic or something, and you're just ahead, and you just need to hold on to the relic and not lose. Right? I think that this card is better. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that, Zach?
No, I think you're exactly right. I think this card is often dead in hand, but when it is useful, it is incredibly useful. And it's pretty potent. The fact that it's often kind of dead in hand or waiting for the right situation really lowers the grade for me. I have it at a solid C. I think it's totally playable, but yeah, it's going to be focused on some of those maybe more seeker focused strategies, I think, too. So
Yeah, I have it at a C plus or C minus rather. So now finally we got hit a little like patch of like just some bad cards there, but on to the good stuff now. We have Sestinar the Silent, 9 cost unique, 5 attack. Oh, it's human, which matters. 5 attack, 5/3 damage profile, 8 speed, 13 defense, 12 health. Spell immunity. Whenever a spell would affect this unit, it may ignore that spell. Ambush 2, which we've gone over ambush before, and then hit and run. Whenever this unit defeats an enemy, it may perform a free move. I'll let you go first, Zach.
I wish this was fallen for Vorendal's sake, but even outside of that, this card is fantastic. It has kind of a similar build in a sense to what we saw with the Prowler. It just does it better. And what I mean by that is its attack, its damage, its speed, fantastic. Ambush 2 can totally be utilized in a way such that this model is doing a ton of damage. Obviously, there's deployment tricks, with the terrain and things like that too. Sure, ambush is pretty good. What this card does that separates it from something like the Prowler, despite it having relatively similar defensive stats, right, 13-12 instead of 12-12, is it has spell immunity and it has hit and run. And that's the type of defensive tech that I want to see in something that is super front loaded on its stats and abilities that cause its cost to be high, but then has low defenses as a result. I want some defensive tech on that card like this has. I love this card. I think it's very, very good. I think it has a ton of different tricks in gameplay. I initially didn't think it might always see play in the dual faction caster lists, and I think I've changed my mind on that. I think it basically is always taken if you can take Legion units. It's really, really good.
Yep. Spell immunity is just the single best ability in the game. Just being able to pretty much have things say, hey, don't touch my models. I love being able to say that to my opponents in game. Ambush 2 on a 5/3 unit is pretty significant. So if you're grazing, doing 5 damage, that's half health for a lot of things. 7 damage if you hit. That's one away from one-shotting a lot of things in the game. There's a lot of good relics on Sestinar that just puts her over the edge. And then hit and run on a speed 8 unit is just it's super strong. Shout out to Noisy who abused me and showed me the light. So Noisy Assassin on Discord put Snapjaw chain or whatever on this thing. And then whenever it hits, it gives it range 6. When it hits, you can pull a model, and if that model ends engaged with this model due to the pull, it takes an extra 3 damage, which then puts her ceiling on a single attack as 10 damage, and that one-shots a lot of stuff. So being able to make an 8-inch move, shoot something from 6 inches away, pull something in, do 2 damage, 10 damage on it, often killing it, and then running away is just it's ridiculously good. Like I said, there's probably a number of relics that are just good on her. I love this model a lot. It's exactly the playstyle I like, which is, a lot of burst damage on a very fast unit. Yeah, I love her. I give her an A plus.
Yeah, I initially had her at an A minus, but as time has gone on, played some extra games with her, I have her at a solid A.
All right. All right, we have Soulwhisperer, 7 cost elite unit, human, 4 attack, 4/2 damage profile, 12 range, 6 speed, 12 defense, 10 health. Curse 3, which we've gone over, Essence Binder 3, which we have also gone over, and then Pinpoint. This unit can trace line of sight through other units. I wanted to love this unit so badly. I've tried to make her work so many different times. Essence Binder 3 is amazing. 4/2 gun at 12-inch range is so good. 4 attack. I mean, she has all the right abilities. The one thing she doesn't have is health, and that's really the delimiting factor. 10 health for 7 cost Echo. This thing has the biggest target on his head. And every single game I've played it or gone against it, this thing dies like immediately, like just to a stiff breeze.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and so because of that, sadly, I just don't think it's playable. What do you have any additional thoughts
Yeah.
there, Zach?
Yeah, I don't know that I have it completely unplayable, but that said, like this is, yeah, sort of the perfect example for when mastery cost is so high that it becomes a liability despite a host of good abilities on the unit. So this unit on paper looks fantastic, frankly. It has a ton of great abilities, great range, awesome damage for that range, etc. The fact that it is 12 defense and 10 health means that it is so squishy. It dies so easily. It is not helped by the fact that it is not fallen. There could have been some maybe redeeming factor there if it was fallen. It is not. And it so very often is just a free 7 mastery for your opponent. And that is super brutal. I have it as a D. I don't think it's completely unplayable, but unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, it is just a terrible liability to put on the board.
Yeah, and I do want to spend just another minute here. Just like the more and more I play the game, the more I realize that no model is safe. There's just too many interactions in the game where your opponent can come out of nowhere and do something and just fly halfway across the table and get on them with like 2 actions. Like there's adrenaline rush and a bunch of spells in red that give like extra free charges or actions and stuff. There's telekinesis. There's swapping positions with temporal disposition. I mean, there's just so many movement effects. There's hit and runs. There's that you can like leapfrog off models and stuff. Like there, it's healthy for the game. I'm not trying to complain about that. I love it because of that. But
Yeah.
because we're in that state and there are so many things that interact with the board, it means models like this are just never safe, and you can't like it's almost impossible to protect them. So I did give it an F. I think I'm just done with her after losing so many games with her, or also being on the other side and just being like, whoa, great, there's a free 7 mastery that I'm gonna get. I've just seen it too
Yeah.
many times that I just can't. I will never
Yeah.
put her in a deck, I think.
10 health too. I mean, as you noted when we just reviewed Sestinar, 10 health 2 really is like right in one shot range
Yeah,
for a ton of different interactions in this game too. It's just really rough.
yeah. What did you give? What was her grade?
I give her a D.
Okay. All right. We have Stitch Corpse, 2 cost basic unit. It is fallen. 2 attack, 2/1 damage profile, 3 speed, 8 defense, 8 health. Swarm 2, clumsy, resistance 1. Whenever this unit is dealt damage, it suffers 1 pure damage. I'll let you take this one, Zach.
This card, in my mind, is deceptively fantastic. Clumsy is awful, but this is a 2 cost. We can forgive it. Speed 3 is awful, but you can absolutely mitigate that speed through a variety of tactics, right? Reinforcement, speed tricks, and things like Borandal, maybe if you're playing some of the plus speed spells, things like that. Outside of that, for a 2 cost, this card is amazing. Swarm 2 is so potent. This is a 4/3 damage 2 cost if it is engaged with something else. If the opponent is engaged with something else, and that's really really good. Resistance 1 is really really good. Yes, this is 8/8 defenses. It's super squishy, but resistance 1 kind of can be a pain in the butt in terms of trying to get rid of this unit. So where this unit then becomes really insane is when you're playing it in something like Morida, where you can be discarding this Stitched Corpse, handing out Swarm to a Resistance 1. It's incredible. It gets Persist in Vorendal. It gets extra move to kind of make up for some of its limitations in Vorendal. In Ingor, I don't know. I have to think about that a little bit more, but I think that this card, in terms of the current sort of looking at it in the faction as a whole, is fantastic. I really like this card. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I'll just add the resistance one, even on 8 health. I mean, if you put this up against like your normal like low curve 3/1 damage profile, or even like 4 drops that are doing 3/2, it takes 4 hits to kill it. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
Or and if you're grazing against this thing, like you have bad rolls running ones, twos, and threes, it's gonna like I think consistently this thing is gonna take at least 3, if not 4 hits. Like 3 is like you're happy to kill it in 3 actions. I feel like, because it like what do you need to hit with 2/5, so that's like your seeker to double attack to kill this thing. That's really annoying. Yeah, I think it's really good. I did give it a B- initially. I thought the speed would be a factor. I think I still think like it doesn't go in every deck. Well, No, that's not true. No, it doesn't go in every deck. I wouldn't play this in Ingor. Ingor wants to be fast. Um, but
I would
I
agree.
think it is better than I initially saw. So I gave it a B minus initially, but I'm willing to come up to a B.
I have it at A minus, and I feel pretty strongly about that. Again, you're right. It probably gets pushed out of Ingor. I think it sees playing Vorndal and Morita though, and I think in Morita it's a solid A.
Yeah.
But I think generally it's an A minus for me.
All right. We have Thrice Murder, 8 cost unique, fallen unit, 4 attack, 5/3 damage profile, 8 speed, 12 defense, 15 health, energy drain 3, which is to recover 3 health when it hits, phasing whenever a graze is scored against this unit, prevents that damage, and then flying while moving, this unit can pass over any obstacle. You can take this one too, Zach.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite models in the game. Honestly, not only its sort of actual physical model, but the card itself. I just love it. Great attack, great damage, great speed, and defenses. It is honestly, maybe not deceptively, maybe everyone can kind of see it, but like it doesn't, 12-15 on its face doesn't seem super tanky, but when you add in energy drain and phasing, this thing is surprisingly tanky. It's flying, it doesn't care about flesh gardens, it goes over things, it gets where you need it to be. It's an incredible relic holder. I like this card a lot. I'm playing it in every single build that I can put it in.
Yep, I would agree with everything that you said. It's you play this, and I bid this initial away for initiative, but it won me the game. But it made me really sad to do so because I think if you draw this, you just play it almost always. It's
Yeah,
that
yeah.
good. So, but
I have bid this for initiative too. Actually, I've never bid this for initiative, but I have bid it at the beginning of the game, and this is totally a future video topic, listeners, for choosing deployment edge.
yeah,
So I have been in a situation where I knew I needed a particular deployment corner, and I had to bid this. But I agree, I was sad to do so.
yeah. I again, I don't know. Maybe I was low on Fallen. I gave this an A minus initially. I'll come up to an A on it for sure now that
Yeah,
I've gotten more
I'm in a
games with it.
solid. Yeah, I'm at solid A with this. I really like it.
All right, Unmake, 5 cost unique spell, channel speed, deal 10 damage to a unit. This is just exactly the spell that you want. Direct damage spell that takes off a model. So many models at 10 damage. Um, you hit a priest that's going to start just, priest comes down turn 1 is going to start gaining 3 echo every turn for the rest of the game. You just deal with that right away. I mean, there's so many use cases of this. It's so versatile, good at killing relic holders, you name it. Yeah, just super solid. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if you can
I
add anything to
literally
that.
no, I've literally no notes. I think this is a great spell.
Yeah.
I love it. Solid A for me.
Damage ratio, 2 damage to every 1 echo. Check. Yep, A as well. All right, last card. Writhing Pain, 2 cost, elite spell, channel speed. Choose an enemy during this activation. That enemy gains frailty 2. I'll just kick this off and say that this is also, it applies to critical grazes. So it's just adding +2 damage overall, even on a critical graze. The way you can differentiate between that is anything that uses the damage icon would not get applied to a critical graze, but if anything says like deal an additional damage, that would get applied as well. I Again, I think I'm looking at my grade and I think it's low. Again, it's probably one of the best damage amplifying spells Black has right now. It's not doing direct damage, so Vorndal is really sad, but he still plays this card. I mean, like you said, you play this with the Sitch Corpse or anything, even if you're grazing, you're going to be doing it's going to be a guaranteed 6. I mean, even at the lowest damage profile, it's just, yeah, I think it's amazing. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I totally agree. I think its only limitation is you obviously need to play it in such a way that you are using all of your AP in a particular activation for attacks. If it doesn't feel good when you need to
Yeah,
play this and you're charging and you're making one attack.
right.
You really want to be playing it when you are already engaged or are getting 2 or 3 attacks in some other way through some other interaction. But when you do, its damage is spot on. The fact that yeah, I don't know. Its cost to damage is just great, and I like it. I think it's a totally solid spell. I like playing it main deck. I have 2 in my Morita build. I could definitely see it going into either of the other Legion Seeker builds. Maybe it won't get played everywhere simply because of its limitations in some way. It's not a direct damage spell. It requires some setup on the board and some favorable positioning at that. But I like it a lot. I think it's good. I have it at a solid B.
Yeah, I have it at a C plus. I'm actually going to keep it there, I think, because like you said, I don't think it goes in Ingor. Maybe there's some better stuff in it. C plus B minus, but I'll stick to C plus as my official grade.
Yeah, I could see coming down to a B minus on it just due to its limitations of requiring some particular board setup.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, and that's going to conclude it. Before we kind of give into our official thoughts, there was something I was going to ask before we got into this episode, but I completely forgot in my notes. So, Zach, if you would humor me, when you think of like death and like necromancy, like, is there a particular like color that comes to mind, or anything?
I, for me, it would be black.
Yeah,
It would be black.
yeah, and like if you look at the cards too, Zach, like, what color do you think these cards are?
They look pretty black.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just, I guess this is my love letter to Loot Studios, that the fact that Legion of the Fallen is technically green, and I'm like, yes, maybe you're trying to differentiate yourself from Magic the Gathering, but I don't think this is the hill you want to die on for that. And it's not too late. The game, even though the game is launching, there is still time to correct this a grievous
Oh
error,
boy.
I feel. So that is my plea, that you change Legion of the Fallen to black, from green to black, to save
It
us all our
does.
sanity.
It does take a bit for us magic-minded folks to recalculate that the what is basically the black faction, or what feels like black in Magic, or at least its closest equivalent, is green here.
Yeah.
So
All right. We'll conclude with overall thoughts here. So I'll go first. 24 cards in Legion of the Fallen. That's the most out of any faction. But I would also argue that they have probably some of the most stinkers, or not great cards in the set. So, that being said, if you remove some of those really bad cards, and then like average out like the kind of the rest, like I think that the average card quality is probably a contender for, the best faction overall in Malediction currently, I would say. Obviously that is up to debate, but I think it's card quality. Once you actually build the deck with it, you'll find that there's a lot of really great cards to choose from. Yeah, do you have any additional thoughts, I guess?
I think when we're looking back at our first episode on Primal Blood, I think, Legion has a bit of an edge in terms of unit quality. Again, it has more cards. Maybe that plays into it, as you noted. I think Legion is really cool in that it has a lot of unique tech cards, or a lot of cards that fit specific seekers or specific playstyles, and it allows for a lot of interesting customization that maybe you don't see in some of the other factions necessarily. And so going along with that, I think it's also a really potent secondary color. I think it's really potent in Morda and Ingor, where it is a, primary or secondary color, depending on how you're looking at it. I think the upcoming, semi hinted at Seeker coming later this year, that is Shattered Throne and Legion, is going to be really an interesting Seeker, because it has access to some of these really unique, potent secondary color tech cards from Legion.
Yeah. All right, and with that, we're gonna wrap up our card review for Legion of the Fallen. Thank you guys all so much for listening. Zach and we've talked about countless different episodes that we want to do and put content on. We obviously have families and jobs, so getting to it is difficult. But being able to interact with you guys and engage, if you guys could leave us a comment, subscribe if you like this and want to see more, it definitely motivates us to keep going, and find time to prioritize this, in our busy lives. So yeah, with that, Zach, do you have anything else to say before we kind of close it out here?
No, thanks to all those that have interacted thus far, left comments, messaged us on Discord. We hang out in the official Discord quite often. I've really enjoyed talking with all of you, and I hope we hear from more of you. So thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.